Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's February the 13th, 2026. You can see that Danny's in the house. Danny's going to join me tonight. I was talking to him earlier, and I thought, why not just have him come along and join me in this very interesting episode number 85. Awesome. You can go ahead and say hello, Danny.
Hey, everybody.
I'm wearing a shirt that he got me. I love this.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, he got me a shirt. He also got me another hat, so I have to give him props for that. Thank you. Your cup is going to be. I'm going to make a freaking point of it to try to get that out and Steve-O stuff out to Amanda. That's top priority. Last night's episode was episode number 84. We were live last night. How cool was that? And for us to be doing back, I think it was cool, man. That was a awesome episode. Throw that thumbnail up that I designed in reference to last night's episode, Amanda. It was first of all, what do you think? What do you think of that? I think that thumbnail is
so cool. That absolutely, I love that.
Yeah, I drew that up last night and I went ahead and painted it to make it look even cooler.
I could tell the paint's not hardly dry yet.
Hey, so there was something else I wanted to kind of throw out there too that I thought was kind of fun. Is those I guess this has been going through Facebook and all the other social media platforms where people are doing these really kind of cool caricatures of themselves. Yeah. And Danny did this for me, and he did that one for me, and then he did one of him. The thing that look, yours looks a lot closer to you, buddy. I don't
know about that gray. There you go.
That's Dory. That's his wife, and that looks exactly like the two of you. And then you show the last one, and that's me and Tina, and that's when we're in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which was or Pigeon Forge rather, and that was a lot of fun. But
I love the way that happens. That's one thing I like about AI. I guess you might say.
Well, I'm going to have to play around with that and see what I can come up with. But absolutely, it's pretty cool. So last night's episode was really, man, I'll tell you what, I watched it a couple of times since, and really, really good. So, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Monroe and the Hitmen. He just released his song today, and so if you get a chance, check it out. I listened to some of the other music. It was really good. I liked the music. So he's actually all over the internet. When I started looking into him, he was everywhere.
Me too.
But anyway, so it's going to be fun. There was also a book that came out by S.E. Porter, or it's going to be coming out. It's pre-sale right now, and there it is. It's How to Write a Murder. And this young lady had reached out to me, and she put me on the cover. So my name is actually on that cover forever. Oh. And that's really cool when that happens. And I wrote a nice review for her, and it's a really fun, it's a fun book. So if you're looking for something, it's really good for all ages too. I mean, it could be for teenagers or adults, everybody in there. It's a lot of fun. So you should check that out if you get a chance. And you could go to the S.E. Porter site. And I'm trying to think of what else. Remember, since we're just getting rolling, I want to thank everybody for being here. Stacy, hello. Sally, Karen, Darren, thank you, buddy, for being here. Steph, Phyllis, I'm sure is here. I appreciate everybody, really, and everybody that was here last night. There's a lot of people that are back again, and I love it. So thank you for everybody being here. I bet you that Georgia's back, etc. And it means a lot. So I appreciate it. Remember to follow me on TikTok and on Instagram. I'm getting really close on TikTok to get into a whole nother level where it's going to be really, really something. And I don't know what that something is, but they say it kind of opens it up for other things. So hopefully that'll happen. And once again, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank both Phyllis and Georgia for the kind, generous donation to this page. And thank you, Karen, I know it's a nice shirt. I appreciate that. And, but anyway, let's get after this. I want to get going. We got as long as he wants to hang out, but we're probably going to go for about an hour and 15 minutes or whatever. And it's going to be a really, really good show. And hang on a minute. I got to find my, Danny, let's talk about that a brief minute. And actually,
I mean, Kathy, I met her after your show. I wasn't on that one. I was in the house. I mean, as far as talking, and I ended up she friended me on Facebook and LinkedIn, and we got to talking. And what really caught my attention is the problem she had as a young child with an autoimmune disease, which my wife Dory has, and she's really struggling with that. And I thought it would be a good idea to get those two together, and maybe she could help her out. But she sent me a book. I paid for it. I wanted to help her out. I did get one, and I read it, and I've been posting it on TikTok, but I'm going to do an official review probably in the next week or so. But I want to talk about it just for a second, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please. And he's talking about Kathy Kleiner Rubin, one of Ted Bundy's victims.
Ted Bundy surviving victim. What's cool about this book? There you go. Is that it doesn't really give Ted Bundy all the praise. You go through a story about her life from a age of 13ish till today, and it talks about all the things that she's went through and faced death. And one of the actual ones was with Ted Bundy, and he almost did kill her, but she survived it with a lot of other things. And one thing I really love, and this book will take you on a trip. It's like watching a good movie that you just don't want to get up from. You just want to keep reading it. I read it in 2 days, and that's big for me. That's saying a lot for me because I really don't read a whole lot of books. But this takes you through what it does. What I really like about it, Jason, is she gives praise and she gives recognition to all the victims. She says their names. She says they've got families and how it affected every one of those girls' lives. And that's what I like. And she discredits what people say about he was a really good looking man and he drawed women in by his looks. And she said that's not right. And she explains that. And she has documentation to back it up in the end. But if you want a good book that will take you on a ride, please read this. You can get it where books are sold. And there it is. I'm going to read it again, and I can't wait to do it.
Yeah, I can't say enough about Kathy. I think, I call her a serial survivor, and that lady's been through a lot. And so anyway, I still adore her. And yeah, if you get a chance, if you're an avid reader and you're looking for something to read, I highly recommend it. And so good. I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's important. And sometimes she actually sits in here and watches us. So you never know. She may drop in here tonight as well. So I agree with you 100%, Danny. Love it. We're going to talk about Nick. I'm going to bring him on here in a quick second, but Nick is a law enforcement professional and trauma survivor with a deeply personal connection to crisis response. In 2000, before his career in policing began, and actually when he was 8 years old, that's how far before his policing career began, Nick and his family were taken hostage in a 50-hour standoff that ended in tragedy when his mother was accidentally killed by a responding sniper. That's a police sniper. And this is an incident that is just insane. The incident would shape the trajectory of his life and career. Over the next decade, Nick served with distinction across multiple specialized units, including the Crisis Negotiation Team, Special Victims Unit, and as a field training officer. Drawing his personal perspective as both a survivor and an officer, he has dedicated himself to supporting others impacted by critical incidents, whether on the job or in their personal lives. And right on to that. That's really cool. Nick is also the host of Endure with Nick podcast, a podcast that creates space for honest conversations around trauma, survival, and mental resilience within high-stress professions. His presentations challenge officers and first responders to rethink how we process trauma, support each other, and find purpose beyond the badge. And he actually is a motivational speaker. And let's welcome him to the show, Nick Hall. Thanks for being here, Nick. I appreciate it. It's good to meet you, and I'm honored to have you here. I've known about you for quite some time.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
I got turned on to him by Rick Salcido, who is a retired Orlando police officer who is he's a special victims unit officer with the University of Central Florida. And he teaches a bunch, and I've had the opportunity to speak throughout the country with him. And actually he's responsible for me being able to speak in Orlando at the Florida Association of Hostage Negotiator Conference. So it's great to have you here, man. I really do appreciate it. Just real quick, out of curiosity, since you are a police officer, and how many years have you been a police officer so far?
11 total now.
11 years. All this news and stuff about that situation going on in Tucson. I'm just curious to what your take is on all that.
What? Excuse me. But I'm sorry. I've been so busy though. What's happening in Tucson? Like, what are you guys? What's going on there?
The Nancy Guthrie case.
Yeah, the Nancy. Yeah, you know that situation.
I didn't know that was in Arizona. But that's like a whole rabbit hole that it's rough. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's 2026 and we have people doing these ransom letters and making, because what did they say? They wanted like 1 Bitcoin to
yeah. I think that was one of the last offers. They wanted 6 million initially.
6 million,
if that's even involved in this, you know what I mean?
Well, so I got to pick your brain. Like, how do you think she's still alive? Like,
my gut is telling me no. I really hope so. I really do. But I'm going to say I'm still keeping up hope. But I have this feeling. Thank you, Georgia. You're really kind. Thank you for that. Hey, listen, I'll tell you what, my gut is telling me no. And the reason why is because of the amount of medication that this lady needed. That's life-threatening types of medication. Right. What are your thoughts on that? What are you thinking?
It feels like it's one of those where she's not alive anymore. And it's sad that it has to get put on a big public stage, like every day. The family has to deal with that every single day where they don't know where she is. So it's very tragic.
Yeah.
And they're just hoping something good will come out of it. But, as many as that we've all seen either in our careers or on TV, it doesn't look good, especially this far into it.
No, it doesn't look good at all, actually. As a matter of fact, this is another example of these types of cases where the media goes haywire. And they're just, not only are they, and we're talking guys that worked in this industry that are exceptionally talented people that went on to retire, and they've got to say those things. They're just too much being talked about in reference to this whole case, in my opinion, but that's just the way it is. But anyway, let's just hope that she comes back safe and et cetera. I was just curious as to what your take was on that, because, you're on the other side of the country, and God forbid we ever have a case like that in our jurisdiction. My goodness. Can you imagine the craziness? I already know in a very small part of what that craziness is like. It's crazy. And it is heartbreaking. Huh?
Just the media attention, that will come into your area, and just everybody's looking at you. I'm sure, I've never had, I've worked one school shooting where they did that, and there were news crews everywhere.
Yeah.
Everybody's picking at,
We had an incident that happened on Good Friday many, many years ago, and I think it was 2012. And there was a couple of guys that were running around the city of North Tulsa, and they were just shooting people for sport. And they ended up killing 3 and wounding 2 others at different locations throughout North Tulsa. And it turned into just a huge, crazy event, et cetera, whatever. But I got a taste of that a little bit, and I was like, this is insane. But anyway, so hey, first of all, let's get started here. And I wanted to. First of all, I think it's amazing that you became a police officer. I think that's really something to be said there. And I know we might jump around a little bit here, but I wanted to first start out with, What was it specific? What was there something, some event in your life early, other than this, or was it this event that made you choose to become a police officer? It's kind of a two-part question. That and also, what is your dream job? What are you looking to do in this career? Is there like a specific thing that you're heading for?
So I'd say like what got me into law enforcement was, ironically, like my dad was a cop, but it didn't make me want to grow up wanting to be one. Kind of backtrack once we get into like the chronological order of everything that happened. By the time I was 18, after the situation with my mom had happened, I ended up, living with my dad and my stepmom. 18 years old, kind of living at home, going to community college. Found out, my dad was having an affair with somebody else, cheating on my stepmom. Turned me into that, like rebellious 18-year-old, didn't want to be at home. Got tired of seeing her going through all that. So any time they go out of town, just started making bad decisions, partying, smoking weed, so like sneaking my girlfriend over, doing the typical 18-year-old BS. And one day, my parents, they had a company in New York, so they'd always go out of town. One time they came back early, house is trash, weed everywhere. I'm at college, so I get a phone call saying, "Hey, you need to get home right now." And I didn't know how to say I didn't want to live there anymore. I wanted to move out. So once I got a voicemail saying, if you don't come back now, just don't even bother coming back, I took that as an out, and I was living in my car for the next couple months, homeless. I figured, let me go to the Orlando UCF area where all my friends were in actual college, and I just couch surf off of their couches in their dorms for a little bit. Tried panhandling. I'm a little 18-year-old kid trying to panhandle in Orlando. That it wasn't really. I didn't make too much money. So shout out to all the people that are dedicated to panhandling. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So after a couple months of doing that, my girlfriend, she's bringing me food she's bringing me money where she's, young at the time, working at an ice cream shop. Got tired of living like that. And I told her, I was like, we got to tell your parents what's going on. And her parents ended up letting me stay with them for a week. Then the week kind of turned into a year. And, that we ended up getting our first place together, a little duplex. I'm working construction with my future father-in-law. And I realized, I'm like, you know what? One, it's hot in Florida. I got tired of shoveling concrete. And I wanted to do a job that kind of gave me a better sense of purpose, right? So originally I thought about being a firefighter, but I realized I was afraid of heights. I couldn't climb the ladder truck. So I figured, let me not even bother doing that, right? And, I kind of realized I wanted to help people, stop smoking weed, stop doing drugs, wanted to do the right thing. And law enforcement was that thing that it just felt like this is it. Like, with the situation that happened, I knew what the job would entail. And I knew that when I'm at work, I want to be there whenever something goes down. Like I want to be one of the guys in the front line, like trying to help people, try to make a difference. So that's what got my foot in the door of wanting to, do better and do the right thing and help people. And here we are.
Yeah. Very interesting. And I'll get to the second part of that real quick after this. I want to get started with this audio, and strangely enough, because you've basically seen everything in reference to this case. And I don't know that you told me before you weren't really familiar with what I'm about ready to play. So I'm going to play I want everybody to kind of hang with us a little bit here. I want to play the first 4.5 minutes of this news article that's being read by some computer voice, but it kind of sets the stage leading up to the part where this individual, I want you to know what happened leading up to the point where they end up this guy breaks into the house that Nick was at as a child, where his family was at. All right, go ahead, Amanda.
A man who authorities say killed a store clerk in Broward County and shot an Orange County Sheriff's deputy was holding 5 people hostage, including 4 children, early today in a home south of Orlando. Sheriff's negotiators talked to Jamie Petron off and on after the standoff began shortly after noon Saturday, but the ex-convict, 41, continued to hold SWAT members at bay into the night, at one point trading gunshots with them. In a phone call to a TV station, Petron expressed compassion for his hostages but also conveyed a sense of desperation. "They're good people," He told Central Florida News 13 at 7:20 p.m., "I don't want the police to come in. If they come in, someone could get hurt. I have no way out of this." 2 of the hostages were babies less than a year old. There were 7 people in the house originally, but 1 escaped, and a second one was let go after he was shot and pistol whipped. Petrin ran into the home through a partly open garage door after a run-in with Orange County deputies about noon Saturday. Police helicopters and patrol cars from Broward to Orange had been scouring the roads between South and Central Florida after Petrin was identified by a witness as a suspect in Friday's robbery and shooting at Sample Food and Beverage on West Sample Road near Pompano Beach, in which 1 man was killed and another seriously wounded. Authorities learned he was headed to South Orange County because he has a brother in the neighborhood. Store employee Jorge Trillos, 22, was killed. His relative and boss, Samir Hantash, 48, remained in critical condition Saturday night at North Ridge Medical Center in Oakland Park. They took out all the bullets. According to the doctors, they did the best they could do for him. "Now the matter is to see how he will do," said Hashem Hassan, Hantash's father-in-law. Doctors removed 4 bullets in surgery Friday. Broward Sheriff Ken Jenny described the robbery as very brutal during a Saturday news conference. "He walked behind the counter and shot Mr. Samir Hantash without deliberation. Then he shot Mr. Trillos. He did not hesitate to fire." Jenny said Petrin was a regular at the convenience store and frequently cashed checks there. He did know cash deliveries were made daily, and that there were larger amounts involved on Fridays, Jenny said. "He left with a significant amount of money. We have reason to believe he acted by himself." Jenny said Petrin was an office worker at an auto body shop called Broward Collision in Sunrise. According to the Florida Department of State, Petrin is president and director of that company. Petrin's neighbors said Broward Collision had a contract to repair sheriff's office vehicles. The sheriff's office couldn't confirm that, but there was a patrol car parked outside the company Saturday night with a missing passenger side window. The neighbors painted a dramatically different picture of Petrin than did law enforcement officers. The Petrin they knew was a doting grandfather, a successful businessman, someone who just bought his dream house. "I am totally stunned it could possibly even be him," said Eric Rosen, who lived next door to Petrin for nearly 4 years in a condominium complex in Plantation. "Everything I know about him is he's a decent guy." Petrin's son, Anthony, started working with the sheriff's office in February as a detention deputy. He worked with deputies to track his father. Vicky Rosen said Petrin was proud of his son. "He made a point of saying he was so proud," she said. "I can't believe this." Petrin moved out of the condominium several weeks ago and into a well-kept ranch home in Plantation Acres. Neighbors there, who did not want their names used, said he described the home as his dream house. They said he had recently purchased the house with his girlfriend, Lynn Garibaldi. Property records show it cost $215,000. On Saturday night, Garibaldi and Petrin's son were in Orlando, trying to persuade him to end the standoff peacefully. "We all love you, and everyone's here," Garibaldi said in a televised plea. "Think about that. We need you and we want you to let the people out safe." The standoff began shortly after noon, when Orange County deputies saw Petrin's black Lincoln Continental in the parking lot of a cash and carry supermarket. Petrin saw the deputies and pulled out, then made a U-turn and returned to the grocery store parking lot, Orange County Sheriff Sergeant Bernie Prescia said. Deputies approached him there, but Petrin rammed a patrol car and sped away, Prescia said. The Lincoln sped north with deputies in pursuit, and Petrin stopped in front of the home where the hostages were taken. There, Deputy Scott Winters confronted Petrin, who opened the trunk of his car and shot Winters once in the groin, deputies said. Winters was in stable condition at Orlando Regional Medical Center, said Dr. Tim Bullard, Director of Emergency Services. Sheriff's officials did not identify the hostages, but family members said they were. Andrea Hall, the sister of the woman who owns the house, Thelma Mills, Hall's 11-month-old daughter, Nicolette, Hall's son, who is 8 or 9 years old.
So here we are. Put up that map of Florida real quick, Amanda. I want to show that as well. This guy does this thing down in Pompano Beach where he ends up killing a clerk, shooting another guy. The guy's in critical condition. He leaves from there. They end up jumping up this guy at another location up towards Orlando. They end up chasing him, if I'm not mistaken, and then they chase him where the cop gets shot outside of the location that you were at. So take it from there, Nick, and tell us kind of what happens next as you're there as a little boy inside of this house.
Yeah. So, Saturday morning, I just remember watching Saturday morning cartoons with my family, and out of nowhere, just some random old guy comes into the house holding a small revolver, and next thing you know, our whole family's lives just changed. So uh, when he came inside the house, it's a house full of Jamaicans, so there's a lot of us, and originally it's my aunt's house who was already there, and we're from New York, so earlier when my parents had separated, it was just me, my mom, and my sister, and in 2000 we ended up coming down to Orlando. So once we're all there, he ends up after fleeing from Pompano Beach, going up to Orange County. Orange County they did a felony stop on him, and he did shoot a deputy in the leg, I believe. After that, he ended up fleeing to our house, going through the garage door, and he wanted to kind of corral all of us into one room at the time. And there's only one male adult in the house, was my cousin that he actually shot. And once my cousin was able to get out, render aid, he pretty much ended up holding the rest of our whole family hostage.
Hey, let me ask you something real quick.
Once
yeah. Why did he shoot him? Did he shoot him like right there at the very beginning, and why?
So it felt pretty early on in the beginning, and I think looking back, trying to analyze it, he was the only male target threat at the time. It was a house full of women, and then me, just a small child. So looking back and kind of dissecting it seemed like he shot the only person that he thought would be a threat. It's my opinion.
Okay,
makes sense.
Yeah. So then what happens next?
Yeah. So at that point, he ends up corralling most of us into so my aunt's still in there at the time. He tells her to go get a phone. She ends up being able to get out, and he corrals all of us into the master bedroom closet. And I know if all the training that we had and how we talk about traumatic moments where you have like a certain sense, like one of your senses that heightens at the time of an incident. To this day, while he was escorting us from one room to the other room, he had pointed the gun to the back of my head. And I just remember feeling the gun as if it was the coldest gun that I ever touched. Like I remember feeling the muzzle just touching the back of my head. It felt like you put a gun in the freezer for like a month. It was just the coldest thing I ever felt. And he escorts us into that room. Now at that point, or into the master bedroom closet. And at that point for me, I kind of just remember hiding a lot, like in the dark, and like sleeping, waking up. And at one point, since it lasts so long, he ends up speaking to the negotiators at our landline. They want to bring us food. They wanted to bring us like donuts, I believe. And he looks at me and he tells me to go get the donuts. And I just remember looking at him and saying, "I'm not doing it." I told my mom to go do it. And unfortunately, that was the last time I spoke to my mom. So moments after she went to go out to get the food, I just remember hearing loud gunshots. And just kind of quickly for me, he ends up taking me, escorting me out while I'm holding my baby sister's, she's almost 1 at the time. And he ends up covering my head, so I don't see the rest of the living room or what's going on in there. I just remember getting escorted out. There was a ambulance that was kind of nearby. They put us in the back. They're checking on my sister. They're checking on me. And wherever they might have had their command post set up, I just remember getting moved to like a different location. And I was always asking them, like, "Where's my mom? Where's my mom?" And eventually, I remember a lady ends up telling me, like, "Hey, your mom actually died." And that's how I found out.
Wow.
There's his mom right there. What was leading? How many hours into this standoff were we talking about here? Is this thing lasted 50 hours? So is it towards the tail end of this situation?
Yeah, so towards the end. So I know it didn't last too much longer after that, but like I said, like my time frame, I kind of just remember, like sleeping and waking up and hearing noise sleeping. And when I look at old articles, I like to bring up some articles said, like, as a young kid, I was like, defecating on myself. And I always say, let me clear the air. I remember peeing myself. I don't remember defecating, because there's a lot of times where, you read articles and like, just like the other one where it says it paints him as a better picture. The information I had was, he got out of prison early, committing a robbery. And once he got out, his game plan was like he knew the convenience store. He knew that there was going to be a Brinks truck coming to deliver money. So the game plan was to rob the convenience store when the Brinks truck came and, make some money, kill the clerk. I mean, that article was the first time I actually like heard of the victims' names of the clerk and that they were related. I didn't even know they were related. But once that happened, he came up there, and I didn't know his son was in law enforcement, but I didn't know they did speak to his son. They brought him out there. They tried to have his son kind of like lure him out. But when the pieces of, I remember him, like the words that he would say and how he was talking, especially after, years of training and going through hostage negotiation school and just being in law enforcement, you could tell that this was going to end with either him killing somebody or him dying. And, he was just very paranoid, like very, very like just worried about like anything and everything that was happening, like who all was in the house and what's going on, if we were lying to him and this and that.
Now, what was it, when this thing goes on, so the 50 hours we're talking about here, and you said yourself you were sleeping in and out, which I how you were able to even do that is beyond me. I would have been terrified, and I know you were as well. What was this hostage taker? What was his demeanor like towards you guys, specifically inside of the residence? I mean, was he just basically, was he threatening you guys continuously, or was he pretty calm with you guys, just more concerned about the police presence outside?
Like I said, for me, it felt like more paranoid, like I wouldn't say calm, like paranoid calm. It was just very like kind of manic, where it's like don't know what's happening, but he's freaking out about like how many people are outside. So because I didn't know, after speaking to my cousin who was a teenager at the time, there's more that like she remembers like actually going through, like there's times where the sheriff's office, they would approach a window or go to a door and he's shooting rounds out towards the officers and the deputies that are out there. So it was a
stayed awake the whole time though. He never went to sleep, man.
I'm not sure if he kept us separate from where he was, so I'm not sure if he actually slept or not.
And I want to ask you too about your cousin. You had a cousin that you said, the other male cousin of yours, he was older. Describe what happened to him. And were you right there when that happened?
Yeah. So originally, as soon as he came in, it seemed like there wasn't much conversation. Once he, got him inside the house, he just shoots him like in the mouth. And I just remember looking at, I'm like, oh man, like what just happened? And the grace of God, he didn't die, and he ends up crawling out of the house to get rendered aid. And I just remember, for me, like I'm 8 years old at the time, but I remember that day was the first time I ever started to pray. Like I just remember saying, like, hey God, please, like, just get my family out of this, keep us safe. Like, that was like that very first moment where you just remember, having a lot of prayer that day. Like kind of got me through it.
Yeah. And you're 8 years old, of course, but this is basically tattooed in your brain. I'm sure that there's parts of this that you still do. You still find yourself I know we're talking about it tonight, of course, and you do talk about this. So I want to remind people that I just didn't bring him on here to bring up all this darkness. He speaks about this, and he does motivational speaking, and he's doing things. Nick, you're doing things to really help many others, and probably a lot more people than you even realize. And because of your experiences, is what I think is pretty amazing. There's no doubt in my mind that you, as a police officer, you have a level of empathy that most cops won't even be able to even think about understanding. I mean, that's pretty extraordinary, actually. So when you're throughout all of this and stuff, was there anything else that just really kind of sticks out to you in this 50-hour time frame? Were you allowed to go to the bathroom? Were you allowed to get something to eat from the kitchen, or were you just completely confined to that closet the entire time?
Completely confined in the closet. Like we didn't really go anywhere once we moved from the original room that he corralled us into the main closet. So it was just a lot of like I said, hearing some noise and no noise, and then just hiding, staying in the room, and a lot of like just kind of wondering like how long it's gonna last. Like when you read it and you look back and it says 50 hours, it didn't feel that long, at least for me, you know.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this thing started up, the SWAT team that started this was which agency, and which one was the one that was kind of the one that they transitioned with another team, and who was that?
So originally it was the Orange County Sheriff's Office, because it was unincorporated Orange County where my family lives, and I don't know the time frame when they transitioned over, but back then, the early 2000s, the SWAT team wasn't as big, so they got relief from Orlando Police Department SWAT team, and the transfer of information, it was poor. The information is a white male suspect in a house full of black people, except the only person that's actually dark is me. Everybody else at that point is lighter skin. Like my mom was very, very light skinned. So back then, the SWAT teams, they didn't use facial recognition before taking a shot at the target. So once she was going to the garage to get the food, the sniper ends up seeing just a light colored hand, thinking it was a target, and then ultimately that's when he made the shot. And then moments later, the suspect, he ends up getting back landline saying, hey, you shot the mom, and he let them know, because they didn't know at the time, because they just saw her hand.
Wow.
And then at that point, isn't that at some point pretty quick thereafter, did he escort you and is it your sister that you were with? Did he direct you guys outside,
Yeah.
and so you guys could get out of there?
Yeah, so it felt very like just right after it happened. It didn't feel like it was too much longer after I heard the gunshots that we ended up getting escorted out of there.
Okay. And then so you get up out of there, and then you learn about this situation. Then kind of from that point, I mean, I know that you've been asked this, and I was really interested in this question that somebody else had asked you. And that was, did they do anything, if you remember, and you may not even remember, but what did they do with you guys? I mean, did they take you to the police station and start, did you get like a forensic interview, or, being that you were 8 years old, do you remember any of that, or what happened to you at that point?
So I don't remember the location where it was a female that ended up telling me, what happened, and it was inside a building. I don't know, like assuming it was some sort of nearby command post where they kind of had everything else propped up, but I'm not sure if it was like, looking back, I don't know if it was the actual, Orlando Police Department.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So since your mom is tragically gone and she was your primary caregiver, what happened to you and your sister? I mean, where did you guys end up going from there? So
at that point, after that all happened, about a year later, ended up coming over to Brevard County and getting custody. My dad got custody of me, so that's when I ended up coming over there and staying with my dad and my stepmom and my older brother. And my sister, since we had separate dads, she stayed with my aunt. So,
yeah. Was he taken into custody? Did I miss that, or was he shot? Was the assailant taken? Was he caught?
Suspect?
Yeah, suspect. Was he shot after your mother was shot?
Oh, he ended up. So after that happened, he ended up just taking his own life.
He took his own life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's thank heavens that he took you and your sister outside, for sure. There's no doubt about that. Before he did that to himself.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'll tell you what, and for I know that you had struggled a little bit growing up. At least I've heard you say this before, where you have talked about where you kind of blamed yourself a little bit for what was it, for leaving the garage door open? Is that what you were kind of? Is that correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, when I was younger, especially kind of towards my teenage years, I always blamed myself, thinking I left the garage door open. And it took a while for, I started having that relationship with God where it's like, all right, everything happens for a reason. Like it wasn't something that I can control. But looking back as like a kid, you would think, you're like, man, I thought I left the garage door open. Like, this whole thing was my fault. Like this has happened because I just left the door open. But my stepmom kind of, helped, like, earlier after it happened, they tried to put you in counseling. And I just remember never wanting to speak to a therapist. And it wasn't until I started, hitting my teenage years where I, kind of realized like I couldn't control what happened. It was just, like I said, everything happens for a reason. It's one of those mantras that I say. And, it was God's plan,
Yeah. I think what was interesting to me too is that there's a lot of news articles about this particular incident, but it's like they scrubbed the internet of all news footage. I mean, I couldn't find like a video of anchors talking about it. It was actually covered right here in Tulsa, but there was an article. There was the transcript of what they talked about, but I couldn't find any video of the actual or any pictures of any of these other people that were involved other than your mom. But so tell us kind of, so your life after this, and you told us a little bit about kind of the stuff that you were, going up through teenage years. What was your, I mean, from 8 years old on, were you thinking about this, like I said, like daily, or was this what was life like for you? I just can't even imagine having to go through that at 8 years old.
Yeah. I mean, so once, I ended up going to, third grade down there after it happened. And I remember there's times where I would just have like a breakdown in class where I just remember running out crying, and like, it would just hit you at different times, and I always tell people, especially in the job where it's like, there's never a right age to process when your parents die. Right. And especially at a younger age, like you don't know how to process any of that. You don't, especially where it's a traumatic incident, you have no control over what happened. So there was just many times where I kind of just remember just kind of being angry, just start crying and just, processing it that way. And then once, I started getting older, kind of the anger started to go away, and then getting a little bit older as an adult, that's when like the forgiveness started to come.
You found out when you found out it was a police that did it. I mean, did you have like what kind of feeling? You had to have some kind of anger. I would, and
Yeah.
for you to end up being a police officer, that just blows my mind. That for you to have that kind of forgiveness and go into that field, maybe stop it from happening to somebody else. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, younger, I definitely remember, kind of being angry, and then it was like once I started, having a closer walk with God, is where I kind of went through the forgiveness stages. I mean, it took a while. Just to be able to sit back and talk about it. There was times where I couldn't talk about it without crying, but now I'm able to kind of, I guess, speak about it, look back and like, reflect on it. And I'm at peace, with, I've never, met the actual shooter, but, the people in law enforcement that I've met through, the job and kind of guest speaking and doing this, they've relayed the message to them, I forgive them. And I couldn't imagine, especially, shooting the wrong person and, kind of changing the whole family dynamic. I couldn't imagine what that would feel like as a cop.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's probably still today having trouble with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know how you couldn't. And I am curious, is he still working as a police officer, or did he move on to something else?
I believe he retired a few years ago.
Okay. One of the things that was interesting to me too is that I know that this thing was litigated early on civilly, etc. But I'd heard you say on another podcast that you were on that you had applied for Freedom of Information Act, to get documents in reference to this incident, and you were still waiting, and you'd been waiting for, like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you'd been waiting for at least a year to that point. Did you ever get all of the information from this particular case, or are you still waiting?
Still waiting. I did a public records request through FDLE, and it's been a pain. The only bit of information I've gotten was like a supplement report from a deputy that stood perimeter on scene. So, especially I kind of I just want the information, for closure, especially, doing the job where it's like, all right, I want to see it from their perspective and just learn, like, what did they say and document everything that happened. And, I just try to go about it the right way of getting the information, just do a public record
Right.
request and go from there. But it feels like it's one of those where it's been so long, and they're probably so backlogged. It's just they're just dragging on it. So,
Well, I would think that that's more. I think they're more concerned with stuff. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I would think that they need to just get that stuff to you, because it's not like there's going to be anything that's going to change monetarily for the city. I mean, at this point, but
yeah.
hopefully they'll be able to get that to you in short order. I would think that you'd be priority number one, honestly. And you got a good reason. I think I would want to know too, honestly. I really do. So you go from there, and you make a decision that you want to be a police officer, and that had to have been, dude, you've got to be the only guy in this country that has a story like this. Do you know of anybody else that even has anything close to this, where something like this had happened to them, and then they became a police
Top
officer?
of my head, no, I couldn't. No, I haven't met. Yeah, I haven't met
Never heard
anybody
of.
that's kind of went through this and said, "Hey, yeah, no."
So you start out looking for a job for a police department, and where's the first place that, that had to have been interesting, because this has to have come up in your interview, right? Did it?
Yeah, I remember, and looking back, like when you're young, because I was early 20s applying, didn't think it would, didn't really know how much it affected at least local law enforcement. And once I applied, it took a while, because back then, nowadays, you interview, you get a conditional, and you get paid to go to the academy. I put myself through the academy. I applied for like over a dozen agencies, and I just remember having to, explain it in like a quick synopsis of like, hey, this is what happened. This happened here, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for a job. Can you please hire me? And once, when I first started at Coco, one of the SWAT snipers, he actually, he approached me and he told me that he had a book that they did training scenarios. And one of the scenarios, they kind of like go over all the hostage or sniper situations around the country. And mine was in the book. And that was like the first time I ever heard something of like, hey, this, we trained on this. We heard about this. Or the older guys, they're like, hey, we remember when this happened. Like we watched it on the news and we trained and, we dissected it. And I never thought growing up that I would hear that. I just thought it was something that happened to, me and my family, and moved on from it. But yeah, it definitely started to become eye-opening once I got my foot in the door and, kind of met older guys along the way that were in SWAT, and kind of learned that it changed how they do things. So it was pretty cool to see that.
What did your family think, Nick? If this is getting too personal, just, you don't have to answer, but just what did your family think about what you did going into law enforcement? But I'm sure they all had mixed feelings about what happened, but how did they feel about you going into law enforcement?
So once I made the decision, I went and went to my aunt's house, and I told my family, I was like, hey, like, this is what I want to do, and told them the reasons why I want to do it. And I felt like it was like, like you say, like asking for like a blessing and something. It felt like it was, they saw where I was coming from, knew I had a good heart with it. And it felt like everybody was excited or happy for me at that point. And so, definitely feel like I'm making them proud,
Man, that's awesome.
I'm proud of you. And I'm extraordinary. I mean, it's just an incredible journey that you've had. And for you to go, so everybody starts out on the streets, you get hired. Cocoa Beach gives you a chance, right? And is it Cocoa Beach? I don't.
Yeah, Cocoa.
Just Cocoa. Okay.
Two different places. They always. That's
okay.
If you're from Cocoa, like Cocoa Beach is Ron John. Cocoa the city is not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go to Cocoa and you start out. You work the streets, and going through the academy was probably, you probably were, doing your thing and doing really well. Then once you get out on the streets, you work the streets, and then where do you go from there? What's your kind of your journey from that point?
So when I get to the academy, I learned I realized I'm not a good test taker. By the way, I get a 81 on state exam. Just barely make it through there. Go to
Really?
Coco. Young cop. Yeah. So young cop and Coco. About 1 year in, I see that there was a posting for the crisis negotiations team, and I just put in for it, not thinking much. And smaller agency, ended up getting the spot. Working night shift, high crime area, so doing that. I go through hostage negotiation school before Rick, so I started teaching it. And the old instructor, he has it's like a death by PowerPoint. He has a million slides that he's going through, and they're all just global hostage crisis negotiations or incidents that happen. And one of the PowerPoints is my mom's obituary photo. And
Really?
yeah, so I go, hey, that's that's my mom. And he goes, hey, let's all take a break. And then he checks on me. He's like, hey, are you good? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, I'm fine. I talk about it. And after a break, I do like a quick little debrief of what happened. And that was one of those like first moments where I was like, hey, I can speak about this, and we can use this as like a good training scenario or something where like I can kind of talk and teach people about what happened and mistakes that were made and moving forward, like what went through there. And then moving forward as I'm working in Coco, working night shift, I kind of run into a lot of young kids that think just because they're living in this situation where something bad has happened to them, that either their own choices that they made or something that out of their control, they think that they're just stuck in this like a hood mentality, or just thinking there's no way to get out. So I'd always find myself telling young kids like, hey, something bad happened to me that I had no control over, and look at me, I made it out. Like I had all the reason in the world to be angry and not try to do anything, and just say woe is me. And on top of my older mistakes where I choose to smoke weed and do BS and party and end up being homeless. So once I caught myself kind of doing that, speaking to kids a lot, and I was like, this could be something where I talk to people. And one of my old family friend is a teacher. He taught like a career class, and he invites me on to speak to the kids, and that turned into like a yearly thing of constantly speaking to his class and talking to kids, saying, hey, this is something that happened to me that I couldn't control, and this is something that I made my own choices and had suffered the consequences, but I made it out. Like it does get better. And so those moments are what kind of helped me start to think like, hey, especially after years of doing this, where it's like, hey, I like talking to people. I like having that deep conversation, kind of going through telling people like what I went through. And then it kind of helps me. I didn't realize along the way, it kind of helps me like process it and being able to talk about it as like, some sort of trauma healing for me. And then I wanted to reach out and talk to people, especially in the job where I find myself always wanting to figure out, like, hey, what did you go through? And like, how'd you get by it? And like, what helped you get through whatever traumatic incident you went through? And that's kind of where the podcast came into play, where I was like, you know what, let me try, put my hand in the podcast. This whole time I always hear you got a radio voice, this and that. So it felt like it was one of those things where
you do have one.
Yeah, definitely. It felt like one of those things where it was like, this is something that if I could help change, help somebody kind of heal and talk about whatever they went through. We don't know how many people this is reaching. There's been so many times where back in the day, I don't know if you guys know Pokemon Go, where it was like everybody would go outside and play Pokemon Go on their phone.
Yeah.
I remember speaking to just some kid and his mom. Dispatch called and they said, hey, I don't know if you remember this kid, but his mom called just to say that because of the conversations that you had with him, he ended up joining the military after high school.
Wow.
And so I was like, wow, that's awesome. I was like, I don't remember the conversation, but I'm glad that I affected somebody positively,
That's right.
So.
That's right. Incidentally, when you were talking to these young people, did you get a sense that they all like automatically gave you street cred for, like all of a sudden they're like, okay, this guy's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, did they
yeah.
kind of come across that way?
I mean, some more than others. You know, there's always going to be some
Yeah.
kids that you could lead a horse to water, you can't let them drink. You know, but then the ones where they actually take the time to listen and you see them again, you can tell that like, hey, you know, they kind of respect you and they appreciate where you're coming from. So definitely one of those things where I realized I like being a part of something that helped the community engagement. You know, affecting. And what they say is like, you're not really going to change an adult. An adult is who they are. But if you can change a kid that can help them be a better adult, you know, I'm all for that.
Even if it's just one in that group, even if it's just one that you hit, you've done something.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'll tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, those that are listening here, being a crisis negotiator is a big deal. Okay, I was a crisis negotiator for over 10 years. It's something. Are you still doing that? Are you still doing that currently, or since you went to another department, did you not stay with that?
No, I did it for 3 years at Coco, and you know, I kind of realized you know, the career goal, you know, eventually make the SWAT team. It's just I like to eat too many donuts, but we're getting there. That's I'll go back to it when I'm older. I always say like when my knees don't work, when I get fatter, you know, when I'm older, wiser, I'll go back to CNT, you know, because I still
donuts, you'll get there.
Huh?
You keep eating them donuts, you'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this much. What I was going to say is about a crisis negotiator, just for the audience to kind of know what that's about. If you put it into perspective like this, that is who the police call when the police need the police. It's like, and as a negotiator, what you say or not say has a huge impact on the end of a call out in many instances. So most of your call outs are resolved peacefully if you can get the individual to talk. So my hats are off for you for doing that. You go from there and then you go to another department, because I think I heard you mention in another conversation that you did that. You're trying to better yourself. You're trying to get the best retirement, better money. Of course, that's what you want. So in doing that, you've made it to other departments, and now you're at Palm Bay. What was it that made you want to do Special Victims Unit? That's a tough area.
So I ended up,
to work.
You know, yeah. So I wanted, you know, more career advancement. So that's what ended up leading me to go to the sheriff's office, you know, a bigger agency. So once I'm there, you know, switch to day shift, you know, become a field training officer. And I always wanted to be a detective. So, you know, originally I wanted to work general crimes and kind of work my way, you know, up through like the different kind of, you know, investigative units. So my phone rang one day. It was like, hey, you going to general crimes? I was like, awesome. And you know how it is where my phone rang again 30 minutes later. It was like, hey, you're going to SVU. And I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up going to Special Victims Unit first. And, you know, I learned a lot. I wasn't in there too long, but, you know, I was in there about a year. Ended up learning a lot of different investigative skills, and you know, just able to the cases I had. If I could, you know, if you can make an arrest in SVU, it's normally a good arrest. So I was glad to do my job at that point. And after I was in there, you know, just some politics were involved over there, so I ended up getting reassigned to a different precinct. And at that point, you know, my wife's pregnant with our second child. And for me, I'm starting to realize, you know, like, hey, like what's more important, you know, like the core value.
Yeah. Your family.
Are you still in that?
You know, career climbing. Yeah.
You still in that?
So once I did do FTO again. Yeah, I did do it again at you know, my current agency of Palm Bay, and I ended up just too much going on. So, you know, I kind of just told him I was going to step away from that, just kind of focusing on at least being with my family. So right now I'm just working day shift, but ended up so once we had baby number 2 on the way and had him come, I kind of was realizing, you know, I still want to do the same things, but I need to be closer to home for my family. And the career plans are going to be the same wherever I was at. It was just like, hey, I need to start looking at, you know, what's the best retirement long term for me, and what's best being closer to home. So, you know, I had a bunch of friends that always worked over there. They sent me the new contract, and I was looking at the contract, and I was like, you know, it's nice that it's less steps than the sheriff's office, but I just wasn't too sure about making the jump again, to the third agency.
Sure.
And one day my phone rings and somebody's like, "Hey, the chief wants to meet with you." And so ended up, having a long talk with the chief, about almost 2 hours, just first time meeting him. And, the energy felt good. I said, like, what I want out of coming here, like at least my game plan for me and my family. And, we're able to, it felt right. It felt like it was like one of those moments where I felt like this is going to be the best option. And then we ended up making the jump, and now it's been there about 3 years now. And, family's good. Ended up having another baby. So now we got 3 kids. So it definitely, looking back and thinking about, like, could I have had this much family time still being at the other agency? Probably not. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, though. I met a lot of people, I learned a lot, had a lot of fun in the places I worked before. But, now for me, just being closer to home and being there for the kids, like, try not to miss as much is definitely important.
It shows you're a good man.
Yeah.
But the decision you made for your family to change, I've had to do that in my career too. I was FTO, and I got off SWAT because of that, because it was affecting my family. And it shows us, you show us that you're a good man. You're a good family man by making those decisions for your family.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. That's what it's about, man. I mean, sometimes this job it becomes people's identities, and they let it kind of take control of them, and you got your mind in the right spot. So that's good. And I think that that's going to lead you to having a long career if you choose to stick around in this profession. What's your dream job? If you could walk in the door and you can do anything, what's the main thing you were looking to do, if you even know?
So I mean, for me, the dream job is just, just traveling the world, guest speaking, just kind of reaching out to people, just letting them know, like, what happened, just talking. And I feel I'm very extroverted, so definitely, just going out, guest speaking, traveling the world. And I make the joke to Rick. I was like, man, I'm just trying to get like you one day, because he's going out doing all these conferences and all that. So
no, he does a lot. He and I
definitely that. Yeah.
Yeah, he and I both do. And I'll tell you what, it's like Jason Schechterly. He was a guest on this show. I highly recommend people that are in this audience to check out that episode as well. He was a police officer that actually got basically almost burned to death in his police car in Phoenix. And he does the same thing. He took a tragedy like this, and I can't even imagine what you went through, Nick. I just can't. I'm still, it kind of, somebody had said, I read something that somebody got choked up. I was choked up sitting here and listening to it. And I mean, I'm serious. I just can't even imagine how that was for you, but you have really made great strides to change it up. So you do motivational speaking. If somebody was wanting to bring you in to talk at a conference per se, what kind of conferences have you been to? How do people get a hold of you to do that, to talk to you about arranging something like that down the line?
So I've been to, like, CISM events, or like any kind of like hostage negotiation event there. So mainly as like a survivor guest speaker kind of deal. And any chance I get to speak at like schools, to speak to kids, just kind of about like careers and motivation. That's mainly where I'm getting my foot in the doors now. So I'm on with the podcast page. I'm on LinkedIn, just as Nicholas Hall. But with the podcast, it's on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube as Endure with Nick. So definitely, 2026, kind of learning how to be more socially, like, out there and networking, and kind of getting your foot in the door with that. So I'm out there on Spotify, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Yeah,
good. Yeah, it's like learning another language, man. I already get it. TikTok and freaking Instagram. It's like a whole nother world, and it's a constant grind. So I have no doubt that your subscribers are going to go up, or your followers are going to go up after this episode from my loyal group that's in here. And it really, and it should, it really should. I wish you nothing but the best in your future. I will certainly bring your name up when I'm speaking in various places. Rick between me and Rick, I think we've spoke at every crisis negotiating conference in this country. I still have a couple to go to, but and so does Rick. But we've been all over the place, and we'll definitely mention you when they're asking if we know of anybody, because I think that I tell you, I know that it's crazy. Do you know if anybody is still around from that Orlando SWAT team? Have you ever? Let me think. I got two questions kind of that popped in my head. Have you had any contact, or you ever came across somebody that was involved from the other families that actually, the families of the people that got killed, or that other family, or any of the other victims in this situation? Have you ever had any contact with any of the other relatives from that situation, or along those lines?
No, I haven't had any contact from any of them down south. And but I did, at least through the career, I did meet a couple of a class up at Daytona, and one of the instructors, he had mentioned that he was at Winter Garden and he used to work for OPD, and we ended up talking, and I was like, his time frame, he was there from like in the 2000s, so I caught him on a break, and I was like, hey, were you here when this situation happened? And he ended up, letting me know that he was actually the sniper scout. He was just left the sniper's post when the sniper shot my mom. And
wow.
We had lunch together, we prayed, cried together. It was a nice touching moment. We still keep in touch. And one of the FISM events that I kind of with the networking through the guy that reached out to me to have me speak, he was actually a corporal on scene at the time. So it was definitely one of those moments where you don't realize the people that were involved, were still around. And at that event, there was a couple of dispatchers that actually took the 911 calls that happened. And that was the first time I met somebody that wasn't an officer that was involved in that situation. So it was it was nice to see that, just me speaking kind of gave a little closure, especially because, our dispatchers, they hear what happened, but they don't know how it ends, kind of just hearing the 911 calls. So
I didn't think about dispatch.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah. So it was nice meeting them too, and kind of, talking to them. So it's nice.
Man, I don't know. I'm just your story is very unique, and when I say that, I just don't know of another scenario that I've heard of anything like. I'm sure that in the world's history, there's been similar events that have happened somewhere, right? But I've just not heard of anything in modern times of anything like this happening. Well, actually, to tell you the truth, SWAT teams have only been around really since the early 70s. So SWAT teams are actually relatively new. They didn't exist before New York put one together back in the day. So I'm just very impressed, Nick, and I hopefully you've enjoyed coming on here. I've enjoyed having you on here. And is there anything else to this story? Like, did you ever inquire? I would just be curious personally, and you don't even have to answer this, and you may not know, but did you ever inquire what happened after this event happened? What was going on that team on Orlando's SWAT team? That had to have been just an absolute nightmare for everybody on that team. Did they ever disclose any of that to you about what that was like for them right after this event happened? And I know it wasn't good, but I mean, did they ever talk about that?
I never heard like what happened behind closed doors, with the team. Looking back, kind of knowing, I believe it was Devings was the chief at the time, and like Mina was there. So when you look at the organizational chart of the SWAT team, it's definitely there's some people where I like to like have a conversation with them, figure out what happened.
Yeah,
because I mean it's pretty. Looking back, it's like the sheriff of Orange County was there too, so it'd be kind of curious to see like what all transpired between the SWAT team and like how they how they changed moving forward and like what went on after that. Cause definitely a big incident that changed how they did everything.
Yeah, and as a negotiator, I'll be honest with you, I never heard your story. I've never heard of this story actually. I can tell you that they're going to hear about it from me now. I'm going to most definitely tell the negotiators about it for sure. And I might even have you remotely kind of join them for a training and talk about it if you would be interested in doing that. But and the other team that I kind of think about too, there's two other teams that I think I might reach out to them and have you remotely speak to them. And that would be Fresno, California, and Clovis, California to their negotiators, because I kind of have a friendship with both of those teams, and I could see that happening. And maybe they just need to have you come out to a conference somewhere down the line as well. But listen, buddy, I can't thank you enough. Your candor, you're just telling us what was going on. You tell everything in this story. I don't think you're leaving anything out. And I've heard you talk about this on other shows and stuff. It's not that you've done a mother load of them, but you're right on the money every time. I mean, there's nothing going all over the place on it. You have a good memory of what happened. I know that there's probably some of it that you probably blocked out of that. Was your mom allowed to be in the closet with you guys, or was she out there kind of maybe shielding you from this guy?
She was in the closet, and like I told people, my other cousin that was there, like I don't speak about like her how it affected her, because it's her story to tell. So I always give it from my perspective, because I mean it was a lot of people that it affected. Everybody had a different scenario there. My aunts and my cousins. So I always just try to be honest and like kind of say like, hey, this is what I remember on what happened for me and my situation there. And like there was times where especially like there was incidents brought up where they said like the police department said that something else happened here, and it was like, hey, like I'll speak to, and like one day me and my cousin, we spoke about eventually like having her on the podcast, and then we kind of do like a deep dive and dissect and speak about everything that happened.
Yeah.
So I always try to say like, from my memory, and I was young, but I still kind of remembered a lot of what happened with me there. So I was just trying to get my perspective on it.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you. Danny, you got anything else for this young man?
Well, I was just thinking, one of your guests in the past, Dennis Hathcock, I was speaking to him today, and this kind of relates to what we're talking about, and something, Jason, I know that happened to you one time in your life, and me as well. When something tragic happens to you at a young age, you remember. And, remember Jason Dennis had that. He witnessed some things back when he was like 15 years old, and he's tell that story over and over again. And
Yeah.
it happened to me whenever I was young, and I've told you those stories with a wrestler, if you remember that. I was 15, and I can remember everything. I mean, just like it was yesterday. And I can't imagine you, Nick, going through what you did, and it's got to be going through your mind all the time, especially standing up on the stage in front of police officers, your own. I bet it was really hard the first time you had to do it in front of fellow officers, not just like a group of strangers. But was it tough to do that? Was it hard? And it had to be.
Yeah, it was. I'm a little nervous. I do notice like when kind of when I started doing the guest speaking, especially for law enforcement, I would kind of just go through everything pretty quick. And after repetition, you start to learn where it's like, all right, just try to slow down. And then at least like with law enforcement, I can kind of throw a joke in there here or two, which would help. It would help calm me down and kind of help me like slow down and touch on the points that we would want to speak about as like law enforcement in that realm.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching the new hostage negotiations course out here in our area, and he'll have me on as a guest speaker. So just a small classroom, but still like 20, 30 cops sometimes. It can be a little intimidating, but it does help, kind of knowing why they're there is for this, hostage negotiation training. So it helps me like kind of like slow it down and speak and say it in like a good way that we can listen to. So in the beginning a little nervous, but once repetition really kind of helps me get through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and just for the people that are here. And there's a lot of cops that watch this and stuff. They're probably, I know that they appreciate your story. And like I said, I can't thank you enough for doing the right thing in life. And I'm honored to know that you're a brother police officer, and you're right there on the front lines, doing God's work, really. And out there, man, your story is amazing. I have no doubt that what I visualize for you, and I don't want you to go, oh my gosh, heck no, I don't want to do that. But I think school resource officer, I think community officer of some sort. That's just, it's almost like it's molded for you. You know what I mean? It's like the perfect fit of you being able to help kids that are in the inner city, especially for them to just kind of get a real, because I mean, a lot of people have went through crazy stuff. But anything else? I don't want to, anything else that I have forgotten or things that you want to say that we need to know about?
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Though there's times where, like, I think about, doing the community resource unit, and I feel like it'll probably happen, but there's always a little part of me where, I tell my coworkers, I'm like, I still like taking people to jail. I don't know why, but like, I have a hard time. I like being out in the street, kind of engaging with the people, especially in areas where like lower, like pretty much the hood. I like being out there and like just kind of, being a face of something that can give some young kid hope, and there's times where, I always try to go to any community event I can and do, reach out to the kids there. It's real nice. My daughter goes to school out here. It's nice, swinging by there and, they see me, and it's, she's at the age where I still look like a hero to her. So it's nice being there, and she's proud of me. So definitely like that.
She's going to be proud of you forever. And there's no doubt about that. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed the content tonight. I really do. I think his story is really incredible. And thank you all for hanging in there all evening. Check out his podcast. And I know he's kind of on a little bit of a short break, but just follow him on his YouTube page. If you subscribe to his page, then you'll be notified when he drops new episodes. And I have no doubt that he's going to have people on there that are going to be bringing it. And I will certainly keep that in mind when I've got guests that I think might be a good fit for your show. And I'll definitely send them your way, because that's one of the hard parts, is finding people to be on here. Next week, ladies and gentlemen, I've really got high hopes. My guest that I've got in my mind that I really want to bring on here, and he's told me he would do it, but he hasn't agreed to the date. So I'm trying to twist his arm. But it's John Bueller. He's one of the main detectives on the Lacey Peterson case in Modesto, California. He's one of the people that you will absolutely recognize. I've seen him talking on Fox because of this disappearance of the lady in Tucson. So I reached out to him, and he's absolutely going to come on. I just want to make sure that it fits his schedule. Georgia, yep. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody this weekend. I will know real quick if it's going to be him or if it's going to be somebody else. And that'll be next Friday. And then, of course, I got to figure out, I might have to do a pre-record, but I'll tell Amanda about that. We might need to do one so I can have one for the next week. Listen, man, Nick, I hope you had a good time. I have really, really enjoyed this. And I'm glad to know you. I'm glad to know you. I'm glad you're somebody out there. And, if I could ever help you in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. And like I said, I will be honored to hear from you, and keep me posted on your career. You're just a baby, Nick. You're just a baby in this industry. I got to say this. So I don't know if you guys do NIBRS training, NIBRS, which is the report system. Yeah. I just went through that. Have you had it? Okay. Well, I would rather grow my wisdom teeth back and have them repulled, buddy. I freaking hated it. So anyway, I heard like 15%. Have you not had it yet?
No, I just just do like the research training for like FDLE, but like not specifically NIBRS like that.
Oh, dude, it's coming to a theater. It's coming to a theater near you, buddy. And I already feel for you. And believe me, it's miserable with a capital M. I've said it publicly, but nevertheless. Anyway, hey man, it's been a great pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. You guys have a great, safe weekend. Freaking subscribe, please. Subscribe. I want you to subscribe to this page and catch some other episodes. If you got nothing to do, how you doing, Sally, Karen? I really appreciate everybody that's in here and so forth. Steph, thank you all for being here. And we'll catch you. We'll catch you the next week. Remember to follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Oh, and that's one last thing we'll end on. I guess Danny's coming up with an idea for my new book. Yeah, that's gonna be the cover for my next book. Yeah, my first book.
I See
That's
Dead
right.
by Jason
Yeah.
White.
Yeah, that might be it. But until next week, take us out, Amanda.